So the fuck up we did was that one of the rollers from the outer bearings had come undone and was not allowing it to seat properly, so it put pressure on that, and eventually the inner part that sits inside this bearing kind of exploded in many shards. We could account for most of the pieces. I had run out of power, so missed a little video when we took it apart. Tapped out the bearing, could confirm it was impossible to fit it from the front, so had to fit the new one from the back. Realized tapping it in place was not gonna work, so rigged up a solution to be able to push it in place using a threaded rod and the old bearing and an old piston head and some nuts. Put the stop ring, the outer stop ring in place before starting to push it in place. It was a little tricky getting something in there to grab with. I eventually find a pair of small pliers that I could hold that nut on the inside to help push it, stop that from spinning while trying to push it in place, and it worked really well. Here I try to see what it looks in there. I just push at the other side of the bogie housing, and the old bearing got kind of stuck there a little, but removing two rollers and tapping it a little and it came right out. Down here on the left you can see the old bearing race that exploded was damaged. Heated the new one. That one had to be cut to be removed. Thought it would go on easier. Here I used the old one to drive the new one in place. The other side went on there super easy, just a little heat and tapped it in place. We also had to break apart the hub again because I replaced both bearings. Here you can see the old one on top. It might have been possible to reuse, but it didn't feel right. I laid it on the shelf as an emergency backup for the future. Getting the inner lock ring in place, and then the axle and a spacer before fitting the sprocket, and they are surprisingly heavy, the different pieces, so it took a little effort getting it to line up with the splines here, but eventually I got it on there. And then it's a lock ring on the backside. This also took more effort than I liked, but I had a pair of pliers that was a little bit on the small side, so they didn't open up as much as I would have liked, but eventually got it there. Got some inspection mirror out to see that it was properly lined up, but it wasn't, so I had to go in there and adjust and ensure everything was seated properly. And then it was just to reassemble the hub again. This time for some reason the nut took more effort to get on there. I'm not sure if it was old Loctite. I had tried to clean everything, so we resorted to a little bit of heat and it came on there a lot easier. Had to heat it a second time to get the last little bit. This time I had taken some measurement to see that I got it to the same location as before, and it needed a little push more to get there. Put the lock screws in place, and then it was just cleaning up the old silicone we had added. Tried another way of extracting that broken bolt, but we didn't have good enough blades to cut a slot in it, so gave up on that. Cleaned up the bogie, added new silicone. Had found some longer bolts that would help lining things up before pushing it in place. So once two of them were in place, we started pushing it in, and it seemed to go on there as it should this time. Added more bolts and started to kind of get close to installing it. Pliers holding on to those thin nuts we had for the lift bolts. Added a little extra silicone at the top because there was some signs of corrosion that the water had been was sitting in that gap, causing some corrosion in the past. Once we were sure we had everything very close to where it should be, we brought in the machine to speed things up. One bolt refused to go in. It started going a lot harder towards the end, so we brought in that. It turned out the threads were damaged on it, so we brought in that kind of makeshift thread tap bolt with a slot cut in it to clean up the threads before installing a fresh bolt. And then it was just hand feeling that all of them were on there tight and trying to open up the plug to fill the oil. This one had not been used. We used the rear plug, but it's a lot easier access now that the wheel is gone, so we were actually a little low on oil, but we filled up everything we had, so it's safe to move around the machine without causing any damage, at least. Install the wheel, and even if we messed up and it cost some money buying some new bearings, at least we sorted it out and no one was hurt during the process. Tightened up everything, let it down,